Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Penny Lane Podcast with Rhinocorn. This week's episode is brought to you by Penny's Going in Raw, Last Bottle Wine, Help You Find Me, and it's guest hosted by Ellis Dillinger.
The stock market is hotter than ever right now, and traders are taking advantage. But what does that mean for the people who still haven't started trading? The market can be a little intimidating at first, but you don't have to be alone in the learning experience. We at the Penny's Going in Raw podcast are here to help you. I'm Dan, and with my co-host Hugh Henney, we make the stock market a fun but informative experience for our listeners. We offer knowledge for all levels of traders, from beginners to those who do it full time. On PGIR, we discuss up-to-date news about the stock market and interview other traders who all started out just like us and made it big. You'll hear from Hugh and other multi-millionaire traders, founders and CEOs of companies, FinTwit superstars, and even professional athletes. Have you ever thought about investing your hard-earned cash but don't know where to start? Do you have money just sitting in your savings account collecting dust? We were all there once too. Listen to Penny's Going in Raw on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello. How do I say your name? I should have asked you before. Is it Rhinocorn?
Rhinocorn.
Well, that's a lot easier. Rhinocorn, welcome to the Penny Lane Podcast.
Hello.
Hello, and we have our favorite Ellis here. Ellis, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to be accompanied by not only one lady, we got two ladies this time.
I know.
And
for this being a woman-led podcast, it's actually very interesting because I've only ever had one woman guest on. And it's Esk Trading, who I'm now best friends with. So I'm so honored that you joined us.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be asked.
Yeah, for sure. So we were talking a little bit before the show, and you were telling us about your mom's current investing.
Yes. So my mom is in her late 70s, and she and her friends. So, this is a group of women who went to college and were in finance when women didn't do these things, right? Because, I'm in my late 40s, and I went to college with a lot of women. There were women abound. But so these were women who grew up in an era where there weren't women doing what they were doing. And so now, instead of bridge club, they drink champagne and trade. So yeah, they have fun.
So fun. And what do they think about the market?
They've never seen something like this. I was whining to them. They were all trading this morning, and sometimes they are very nice and include me on their Zoom calls, mostly to mock me, but that's okay. But so they're all, I was complaining and whining, and they're like, you can do better than this. It just takes discipline. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, we've never seen a market like this ever. And these are women, right? They're in their late 70s. So they've been trading professionally in finance for 40 years or so. Some of them for 50. One of them started at Charles Schwab right after college graduation. And they've never seen a market like this. They're a month of chop, sure. But then you go up or you go down.
Yeah.
Just goes this sideways. And we've been here for almost a year now. I think Valentine's Day will make it a year that we've been in this.
My first and main mentor, Brad Mullins, he is huge on saying that the market has not been the same since the GME AMC run. And it's interesting because some people who are trading options, some people are having success in this, but the way he traded prior to GME AMC is the market does not allow for that anymore.
Yeah, there's no swinging anymore.
No.
My son, so I have two kids, and my son is probably the one who is more relevant to this conversation. He's 13, and we went through I homeschool them. We went through a little financial literacy class 6 months ago, and I gave him $40 in a Webull account.
Nice.
And I said, here, have fun. Let's learn, right? What better way than to blow up your first account with $40? So yeah. You know what he does? He takes Webull's platform, and he goes to Ford, and he starts making a computer program. Like my kid. Like he was 12 at the time. No, he was still 13. He makes a computer program and he like programs it. And he's like, look, Mom, but the program is set for like 2-hour time blocks. Whereas if you've traded before GME, you're used to swinging. So you think in like terms of cup and handles and like all these, like, here's this candle pattern. But for all of us from before GME, we think in terms of like, weekly, monthly patterns, right? You're swinging something. You're not
right
day trading it. And he's like, he sits there with the stupid computer and is doing it on like 2-hour time frames. And so I think that really kind of shows the difference from somebody who learned before GME and somebody who learned after GME, because he doesn't look at the larger time frame except to determine like support and resistance over time. But to actually trade, he doesn't even look there.
Interesting.
And so, newer people to trading probably will have better success. And this is just my opinion. If they trade shorter and they don't hold over, like if you don't hold overnight. Holding overnight gets risky.
Where's his account now?
$6,231.
Damn.
What? Wait, what?
That's amazing.
So my mom never taught me to trade. But as soon as she learned I was introducing him to it, she spent hours with him, you guys. And she's like, your mom's not around, right? I don't want her to hear this. And I'm like, what? But, which is why she and her friends sometimes mock me. But, yeah, she spent hours with him teaching him how to do it. And he is a very logical computer algorithmic mind to begin with. Some people just are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those. And so he can sit at the computer and see the patterns in something in a way that, like, I would not see. Right?
Yeah.
He made bank off the Roblox drop from, like, 103 down. And then he's just stopped trading for this. He hasn't traded in, like, a month. He's just decided, I don't want to do it right now. And I'm like, that's fine. Like,
the market's open at 9 o'clock every single day for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm like,
are you so proud of him?
I am stupid proud of him. It's insane. And so if you talk to him about like company fundamentals, he rolls his eyes and he doesn't even know what you're talking about. But if you start talking to him about like support and resistance and regression to the mean and that kind of stuff, like all the math stuff, he really digs. Once you start talking about like investing fundamental type of stuff, he doesn't really enjoy it. But so the money's in his account. It'll stay there, right? It's his money. So cheers. He did take some of it out and buy, oh my God, of course, he's 13. He bought Magic cards.
Of course.
Right? Magic the Gathering. He's a huge Magic fan. We are huge nerds in on my house, which is fine. But he bought some cards and he got like 2 rares. He spent like $30 and he got 2 rares. And those 2 cards alone are worth $500. And he's like, look, Mom. And I'm like, oh my God.
He sounds like a
child's
hustler.
going to be like a millionaire before he graduates high school.
Yeah. He did.
He'll probably never have a boss. He doesn't seem like the person that'll ever have a boss. He'll do his own thing.
Yeah.
Make his own money.
I fully support that. Having had a boss for a while, I fully support not having a boss.
Totally.
There you go.
Totally.
If he wants to be an accountant, let me know. I got some people he can talk to.
Let's just say his idea of fun, he got mad at me for taking away the Nintendo, so he programmed my computer to say no every time I hit the enter key.
I like him. I like him already.
And so, he's a great kid. Everyone really likes him. I love him. I just get exasperated when, you're trying to type for work, because I have my own business, and you try to type and you hit enter and it's like, no. And you're like, ah.
My mom would probably ground me if I did that.
I slowly took away his electronics, and you know what the kid does? He just reads a book.
Oh my, that's so frustrating.
Yeah. His therapist says it's called adapt and overcome. So like punishments become ineffective, so you have to find some other way to motivate them.
Oh my goodness.
Take away my toys? Fine, I'm just going to read. Why
Well,
not?
that's exactly what he did. He's like, you want to take away my... Fine. Like, I don't need computer games. I'll just read. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so frustrating.
Just let him, honestly, if I were you, I'd just let him go as hard as he can when it comes to computers. He'll go to MIT, start some startup, and he'll be fine.
He plays on a Minecraft server with some MIT people because, like, I started reaching out to professors and being like, hey, I have this kid I don't know what to do with. Do you have any guidance, right? And so the physics professor, one of the physics professors at MIT, threw him into a server with his physics students, and they routinely get on and they'll blow stuff up for an hour. They'll build stuff and blow it up. And I'm like, okay.
My son is 7 and just in the last month has gotten super into Minecraft. Like, it's like all we're talking about. It's all we're doing. My daughter's next to me. She's 5. She's on her iPad playing Minecraft. I guess this is our life now.
There are some really great things. You should look into, like, Minecraft education. They have some really great stuff. I
grew up on Minecraft when I was a young kid.
Did you?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played it when it first came out. It looks dated, but there's so, like, it's just like I'd play Minecraft for like 20 hours and like go to bed, and like then you play with your friends. But yeah, Minecraft came out. How was I? I was like a freshman in high school or maybe in middle school, and me and all my buddies, we all played it. This was back when it was owned by Mojang. Now I think they got bought out by a bigger company. But yeah, it's
nuts.
It's like a children's game too. Like, you just build stuff, blow it up, and then kill zombies. Like, it's very like it's relaxing. I actually know older adults who play Minecraft too. It's very addicting because you just mine. You need those diamonds. You need those resources, and it never ends. You always come up with new ideas.
Yeah, that's what they do.
His creativity, like last night, he was showing me he built a dock. I was like, I want to hang out on this. This is super cool. And then he built his school.
There you go.
I mean, I don't totally understand, but super proud.
Yeah. I tried. I'm like, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm proud of you.
So how did you get into trading?
So my mom didn't teach me about trading, but she did teach me about investing. And so I tend to separate my my financial literacy into 3 periods, right? When I was a kid and someone else paid for the bills, when you're a young adult and you screw everything up, and then when you become an adult. And so...
Wait, I'm a young adult. Am I going to screw everything up?
I don't know. Somebody once told me that everybody blows up an account once, and I'm like, I don't really think that's true because I've never done it. And
I've blown up accounts.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh, I've evaporated money out of thin air like a magician. Oh, yeah.
Well, in this market, it's particularly easy to do.
That is true.
But no, so I started with investing, and what are stocks? What are companies? Right? Like the building blocks essentially of the market. Mm-hmm. And then I was in the military for a while and kept investing, and then a couple years ago, I just started looking at the investment accounts and putting some money away and being like, oh, this one went up. Okay, I'm going to sell it. Let's find something else new, right? And then you start down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like YouTube videos and books and Twitter and more YouTube and more books. And so you just kind of start down the rabbit hole. And then you just are kind of like, what am I doing? And all of a sudden you're on Webull and you're trading at 1 a.m. because I'm like a Pacific time person. And so their pre-market hours open at 4 a.m. Eastern, which is 1 a.m. Pacific. And before you know it, then you stop that and you're like, what am I doing? This is nuts. And then you go back to it. And then you're like, no, this is nuts. And then you go back to it. So for about a year, I've been trading like pretty steadily. I guess more regularly, like it's a regular part of my life rather than I get super involved and then back away and then super involved and then back away. Which is also longevity, right? Like you do what you got to do to stay long in the market.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. My mom's friends like to laugh at me because one of them has this saying that if you're actively trading, you should be done within the first hour of market open unless there's like a dramatic market event.
I mean, that's good advice.
Well, so her thing is that like you make the plan, right? You have a plan going into market open. and you execute the plan. And if the plan fails, she cuts losses so fast. Like, I've watched her trade, and it's something that I really have taken to heart is that you have to cut your losses fast because you can always get back in.
Right.
But you can't always pull that money out. And this is more so true with options a lot of times than with stocks, although growth has been like super smacked down. Like, I like penny stocks. Penny stocks are one of my favorite things to trade. But you trade them on technicals because they're penny stocks for a reason.
Right.
So you trade them on technicals, and the technicals aren't holding up right now. So it's been a good 10 months since I've really traded pennies.
Uh-huh.
Which makes me sad.
Yeah. I think we're all there, right, Ellis? We're all sad about pennies.
I was playing pennies today. Got some Cavill this morning. Got some swings right now. I'm still in pennies just as much as options.
Are you really?
Yeah, what do you mean? They're all set up right now. When the market tanks, probably Monday, whenever this gets released, which would be second week of February, pennies are gonna go nuts.
Well, yeah. So they're super smacked down. So you can do that, right? If you have the time and the money, you can sit in it and swing it. But I don't know. I haven't really played them because I like to play them when they're running.
Yeah,
right.
You like the Momo runners.
Yeah.
I've been swinging a lot. I just been like I just played AMY. Nice. I was in at like 2:30ish, and it's currently almost $3 after hours.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I also play options too. Don't get me wrong. I'm much more of an options degen than penny stocks.
my options degeneration started when the growth stocks got smacked really hard last March. But no, so I did snap shares after hours today because, it had like a 40% run after hours, and I saw it getting loaded, right? You're like, holy crap, look at what's coming in. And so I didn't get the whole 40%, but I did get 21.2% of it, so I'll take it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Saying again, I always tell people this: S&P returns like 10% a year, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, so if you can make 10% like in a week, it's really good. Like, this is part of like my longevity thing. Whenever anyone asks me like, how are you trading? Like, why do you trade? It's like, well, because it's a way to manage active growth. And they're like, well, what are your goals? And I'm like, to be green at the end of the week. I mean, some people want to grow their portfolio 50%, but if you're talking to someone who's in their 20s or even early 30s, you're like, look, if you grow, let's say you have $100 right now, right? And you throw it in and you get 110 by the end of the week. Congratulations. Now, next week you invest that 110 and you end up with like 121. Like, your growth doesn't have to be, I bought the $3,000 Amazon calls when Amazon was at, 2,400 today. And so I'm going to have a 5,000% winner tomorrow morning. Like, those are unusual. And so people need to learn to manage especially in options. You have to manage your expectations a little bit with your account. So, yeah.
Yeah, Twitter kind of ruins the expectations. Especially when you're like I always like tell us the young guns. Today I made a new rule in our Discord that if you start talking about ER lottos, I'm just going to block you. Because like people don't know what IV Crush is. And they're like, well, I saw this guy on Twitter make 3,000%. I'm like, that's an anomaly. Like, that's not going to happen all the time. And it's just kind of like, now they're all mad at me because I told them not to buy Snap calls or Amazon. I'm like, it's not worth it. For every one lotto you hit, you're going to lose another 20.
Well, yeah, so. And you can lose huge in earnings either way. Like,
totally.
You have to be okay if you're playing in earnings, unless you're playing inside information. But even then, you have to be okay losing what you put in with the earnings. Like, you absolutely cannot need that money for any other reason. Like,
yeah. Well, this one guy went full account into Snap 30 calls that expire tomorrow, so he's probably gonna, be like, oh, I told you. I was like, okay, dude. Well, when you lose all that money by next week, I'll come help you and teach you how to trade.
Right? People who when did Tesla pop earlier this year? It had like a 10% swing in a day up. And I know people that had those calls, or it was like 8%, 8 or 10%. And I know people that had those calls because they were like, oh, this is cheap. Tesla's moving up. I'm just going to grab this OTM call and I'm going to take it. And I was like, well, okay, I'm like, and if it hits, congratulations, right? Like,
yeah.
I cheer for everybody, for all the retailers. And no matter what size your account is, if you're trading for yourself, you're a retailer. Like, that's just the way it goes. Like, you could have $2 million in there, and you're still a retailer if you're trading for yourself and not through a hedge fund. So I cheer every time the retailers win. Like,
What about a mommy hedge fund? Is that the same thing?
Right. my mom and her friends. Oh, so as like a side note, they one of their daughter's boyfriend started trading, and he was big into small caps because, you know, small caps are affordable, right? When you're first starting out, you say, I have $100. I can buy 10 shares at something at 10, or I can buy like a tenth of a share of something else, right? So
right,
buying small caps and low float small caps because someone convinced him that low float small caps are the things you want to grab and hold.
Grab and hold?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they have really great fundamentals.
Right? You really want to hold low float small caps. So he dumped $2,000 into a low float small cap. And the next day, he cheated on the girl. And so this woman, and this is the level of petty that I aspire to in my life. Okay?
Wait. He cheated on one of your mom's friend's daughters.
Daughters, yeah.
Okay.
And so the daughter told her mom. So her mom was like, this is great. So she bought the stock. She dumped $5 million in and moved that stock, like 15%. And he held. Wait, and it gets better because she sold. As soon as she sold, the stock tanked, and all of a sudden that $2,000 was like $200.
Yo, that's so
badass.
Is that not the level of petty we all aspire to do? Like,
she's like,
yes.
I'll lose $250,000 right now just to show this man a lesson.
that was her thing. She's like, she had the money to do it, so she did it. And yeah, I use that as kind of like my object lesson when anyone says like, hey, what about low floats? Like, I love low float stocks. Low float pennies made me a lot of money over the summer because people were home and people had time to trade, and they are low and they are small. And if you can spot the load coming in like early and get in, and then it pops, and then you have to sell. Like the catch is you have to then sell it. And so they made me a lot of money because you can trade those suckers like 5 times in a day for like 8% each time. Yep. And you all end of the day you made 40%.
They're ATMs, literally, if you know how to trade. Now I'm curious, like, what do your mom and her friends trade off of? Is it like technicals? Is it news? Or
they like to trade off of news, and they're big fundamental people.
Okay.
Just because for them, I just had this discussion with them yesterday. The market is wonky, right? Like, we can all agree the market is it's a trampoline market. You bounce up, you bounce down. You bounce up, you bounce down. So they trade right now. They're staying in the blue chip, well-known companies, and they're just doing big block trades. So that's what they're doing right now. They have stock portfolios. I have a portfolio. We all sell covered calls. You know, it's what you do with stocks that you're holding. But they don't really enjoy the roller coaster ride.
They just want to get their money and get out.
They do. And, you know, they have fun doing it the way they're doing it. And quite frankly, this entire week, I've been done trading within like the first 2 hours of the market. And it's relaxing. Like, you're done. You've made your money and you're done.
Yep.
You're not an all-day grinder?
Not right now, I'm not.
I sat here all day and made 2 trades.
See, and that's, you know, that's not something I'm really in a position to do with my time right now either. If this was small cap season or, you know, growth season, I might be more willing to spend more time doing it. But if you look at most of the charts, like the violent movements are in that first little hour block, and then they just kind of like piddle.
They just do nothing all day. I think.
Yeah.
we were making a joke today how SPY moved 20 cents in 3 hours, and it just dumps end of the day for no reason.
Well, not.
I was so sleepy during that time, too. I was in QQQ puts, and I was just like, it was like I was down 100, up 100, down 100, up 100. Like,
it's nonstop.
I was like, oh my gosh, I got to set a stop loss and just walk away or I'm going to lose my mind.
Stop, yeah. So I bought Ford puts this morning thinking there would be more of a violent, like, down. So I got, like, the $18 puts for, I think it was, like, $20 a thing. And it didn't move. Like, it sat at 28 all day. And then in, like, the last 30 minutes, it sold off. It, like, the stock sold off. So it hit, like, 0.37, which is when I sold it. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm not holding this overnight. Like, forget this. So boring all day. You're just like, I bought it. I set the sale price. And then, like, you know, you periodically check your phone, right? Everybody's traveling with, you know, little portable computers these days. So you check it, and it's just, oh my gosh, it can be so bad.
Now, what do you mainly trade? Are you in options? Are you large, like, shares? Or
So I trade both. It really just depends, like, the situation. So, like, I saw Snap run after hours, so I traded shares there because you can't trade options after hours. Depends on my daily risk tolerance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, like, in an ETF, like Spire, QQQ, I will trade options. But I don't really like trading the indexes. It's really good practice. Like, I won't lie. For people who really need the practice at finding an entry and an exit and actually exiting when they, like, right? SPY and QQQ have enough movement within a day. It's really good practice for you.
Mm-hmm.
I did buy Google shares, some more Google shares because of the split. But mostly it's like options these days. Nothing's really moving like violently enough to trade the shares and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, $100 goes further. Yes, you can lose it all, but you can also double it. And so you have to be willing to tolerate that risk if you're playing options. So I have a couple different trading accounts, right? One is just for large caps, one is just for options, one is just for small cap shares. I try to keep some of my stuff separated out so that when I go back and look at my journal, I can say, you know, okay, at the end of the year, I'm up, 400 whatever percent in the large caps, but, I'm only up 30% in the small caps. So what did I do differently in one and not the other? And so you can go back to your journal and see how you traded and that kind of stuff. And that's really helpful for me. For some people, it's not helpful at all. But if you're consistently losing or consistently making trades that you don't know why they worked out, a journal is really helpful. So, because then you can write why you took it and why you sold, right? And then you can look back and be like, oh, yeah, that was dumb.
Yeah, that's how I do. I have two separate accounts too. It's very underrated, I think. Some people, like I know people that have like their long term, their options, and their penny account all in one. I'm like, no.
Yeah. I took an option swing today, which I never do, but like this person just convinced me to take an option swing. And it was weird having an option swing in my day trading account. I'm going to have to figure out what to do about that, actually. I like to have everything very, very separate.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a separate swing account. I don't even look at it because if I look at it all day, I'll just stare at the ticker and be like, "Why is it not moving?" I'm like, "Oh,
right.
It's a swing."
Yeah, my swing account has been rather slow, but you have to have a plan with your trade, right? Regardless of what either your plan is technical or news or I like APXI, the bioscience one. I would never actively day trade it, but I have been accumulating it now under $3 because they have some really good studies coming through, and they're doing some really cool things with cancer and programming T cells, and I think it's a really good company. So I call it a swing because I will sell it when it pops. Like, my long-term stuff is, like, keep and hold. But swings I will sell.
Wait, what's the name of that ticker?
APXI, I think.
APXI.
Is the one I like. I also like Marvel. I every time I see the ticker, I think it's like the movies, which is
same here, but it's actually a chip maker.
Super dumb. Like, I can't, because that's not what it is. But I love the ticker. It's been like slapped down so hard. But it's like the metaverse is the new thing. But okay, the metaverse needs stuff to run on. And
exactly.
Marvel is the producer of that stuff. And so that is also in my swing account. And so, there's things like that. Like Matterport is in the swing account. Because all of those are, when they pop, I'll sell them. Because I expect them to pop and drop. And so that's what I do with my swings these days. Since nothing seems to like technicals very much. Although Snap...
Nothing works anymore.
No,
nothing works anymore.
And if I feel I'm about to launch into an Elliott Wave tirade, but if either of you are Elliott Wave theorists, I apologize in advance. But like, someone was literally was like, yeah, Facebook reached the end of Wave 5, so of course this is a correction for its XYZ. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, Facebook had a whole, like...
Wait, so you're saying you don't believe in Elliott Wave?
I do not at all.
Really? Okay. Someone sent me a free ebook about it a couple days ago, and I was reading through it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna play like pennants and my bull flags and my penny stocks, and call it a day.
Irrational exuberance? When it comes to killer wine at drastically low prices, 30 to 70% off retail and free shipping. We live for that here at Last Bottle Wines. Whether you went long or short on GameStop, you'll need a glass of something terrifically tasty. And we've got the goods. Last Bottle is a daily wine site based in Napa, California. One wine every day at Black Swan event prices. Usually 30 to 70% off. Until poof, it's gone. Whether you're a pound-the-table type, think ultra-crisp, quaffable Sauvignon Blanc, or a dividend aristocrat, Burgundy, or Napa Cab, there simply is no better place to buy wine on the web. And they always have free shipping. Last Bottle has a deal just for Penny Lane listeners. Use promo code PENNY, that's PENNY, to save 10% off your next order with Last Bottle. The code is good for one order and one order only, and it expires March 11th, 2022. So head over to lastbottlewines.com today. That's lastbottlewines.com.
Have you guys heard of the Strat?
Yes, but it's off of candles.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not. So my problem with Elliott Wave theory is how malleable it is, essentially. You can take any chart you want and find yourself macro waves and microwaves and, whatever waves and ups and downs. And that's because the stock market moves up and down. Like, Facebook didn't plunge because it reached the end of a Wave 5. Facebook plunged because they had really bad guidance and earning. Like, you don't listen to that Facebook call and think, oh my God, Facebook is like headed into the next century, all ready to go. It's amazing. You listen to that call and you're like, oh my God, get me out.
Are your mom and her friends on Facebook?
No, they don't believe in social media.
Oh.
We should make them furus. We're gurus. Grandma furus.
I like these people. These seem like my people.
They're an interesting group of women. I got scolded very hard for buying the Facebook puts yesterday at close because they were like, you bought them way out of the money. And I was like, well, if it tanks, it's going to tank hard because there was a gap far left. And I was like, so if it tanks, it's going to tank hard. And the IV was so, like, man, the IV this week has been nuts. But it was so bad that I needed it to make a big move to really, like, make it worthwhile. And so I got scolded for it, but it worked out quite nicely.
Did you send them the Weeble scorecard and go, LOL, get wrecked? That's my favorite thing to do.
I try not to do that because I really like them.
I'm just kidding.
For all that they mock me, I did, however, call them and tell them.
Be like, yeah, I made 3,000% last night.
I was like, it's a 682% winner. I really wanted it to be 666%, just because they're all hardcore Catholics, and so I like to sometimes push little buttons like that for them.
Sure.
So, but no. So I did call them and tell them that it worked out, and I got a lecture about, you're not young anymore, Natasha. You have kids. You need to start planning for their futures, and your risk tolerance should be less, and everybody's risk tolerance is different, and this is one I was willing to take, right? Anytime you play earnings, risk tolerance is different for everybody. It's why I don't enter a trade without a stop in place. Like, I just don't, because that's my risk tolerance. Now, have I gotten busy and that stop been blown by before? Oh, yeah. And that's the hazard of platforms, right? Like Webull and Robinhood and everything is that it makes it so accessible to you that you sometimes forget to check.
I wake up at 4 a.m. every day to check gappers. My girlfriend's been staying with me for this whole week, and so I've been trading full time because I'm like in between jobs, and so I have one more week left till I start my new job. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I gotta make sure my penny stock I bought a questionable amount at 7.59 isn't going to the moon right now."
Yeah, right.
She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it." And we're like making lunch. I'm in a SPY trade. I'm like, "Yeah, I just gotta sit here for like 15 minutes, I promise." And she was just like amazed of like all the lines I have. Like, I'm on voice chat. I have like 10 different scanners up. I have 4 different screens. Like,
do you really? No.
I'm a madman when it comes to trading. I'm in voice chat all day with my buddies.
I can't do that. It crowds me out. Like, the noise crowds out my better sense if I have too much up.
I agree. I don't like being on. Well, that's not true. I listen to Palmer, who's I don't know if you know him, Carrie Palmer.
Yeah.
We've had him on the podcast. I listen to him every morning. Not as much for his plays, but mostly for his just really zen attitude. Like, he's like, well, there's Microsoft. Looks like we got a little pop there. And then he's talking to his skunk and getting coffee. And I'm just like, this guy is chill. And then sometimes I'll listen to Shark Trades in the day because he's the only person on voice and also super chill. But when you get into a voice channel with like more than 5 people, I just get anxiety, like trying to figure out who just everyone's voice is and who I want to I just can't do it.
The only time I've had success doing that is when we're all in a trade together.
Mm-hmm.
So, like at the beginning of the AMC squeeze, and then we were all on voice together for like 2 hours because we were watching it like squeeze up.
Yeah.
Like, then I can do it. But other than that, during the day, I'm in Discord text a lot, which is easier for me to sort through than a voice is.
Yeah. I love a Discord text. For sure.
Wait, what's a Discord text? Like messages?
Just like on the trading floor.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I forgot. Sorry, I'm young, so I had to translate it. But I really enjoy it. I think the biggest thing I've done this year, especially, was my biggest goal, was to take in as much information as possible with people who have more experience than me, and also try to teach people who, like, I taught one of my buddies how to trade SPY, like 0 DTE options this week. So he's good with the the charting kind of stuff, and I'm good with what option to pick. So it's good to kind of refresh that knowledge. If you can teach it,
totally.
You can trade it. So.
Well, I have a problem actually with people that think that. So I have no problem with like exposing yourself to a broad range of trading practices and all, but when you start trying to combine everything into one for yourself, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. In no small part because so many of the trading, like the common trading practices and older traders base their stuff off of different things. So if naturally you feel more inclined to trade technical setups, then that's where you should focus. Like once you've exposed yourself, and if you like to trade new setups, then that's where you should focus. And if you really like, to trade your intuition, then that's where you should focus too. But each of those has like a really different like feel almost when you start searching for other traders. So like I do not trade well with Elliott wave traders. Like
you have beef with them, huh?
I do. I don't trade well with them. So when we're trying to talk about a trade and they're speaking in like wave theory and stuff, not only does it not like resonate with me, it doesn't click with me at all because I don't think it's a valid, thing. And so to discuss a trade when you're so opposite in trading styles is it can be a really frustrating experience. And so just like I would not take a trade based off of someone who uses wave theory because I don't use it. And so while I will take a technical trade, like I wouldn't take one off of a wave theorist who's telling me, we're going into wave 3 or wave 4 or wave 5. Like it's not the style I use.
One thing that messes me up sometimes is if I'm in a trade and I have like a specific plan, if I'm in the trade, I've got the plan.
Yeah.
And if I'm on voice and other people are in, like, let's say that I took SPY puts, right? And I'm holding them and I'm waiting for the trade to develop and I haven't gotten stopped out and I'm still like feeling these SPY puts I bought. And then someone in chat or in voice is like, oh, I'm going to take SPY calls here. Sometimes it'll sort of freak me out and I'll just close the trade. And like that is usually burns me, right? Because I'm basing my trade on something different than they are and we can both be right. And I really want to get out of the habit of doing that. It's never a good thing.
No, and sometimes it is, right? So I'm in a trading group with some people that I've been trading with for like a year, and I know where some of them are coming from. And so if one of them, so I was in a Hood puts before Hood earnings, and it, by the way, did exactly what I thought it was going to do, which was tank. The problem is the institution stepped in, right, and bounced.
Kathy Woods and her ego.
Oh my God.
Soaked up all those shares.
Like, that's a whole, like, podcast on its own, right? I mean, because that's growth stock and stuff is a whole trash heap. But so someone else was in the same, in the Discord was like, no, I think, institutions are going to step in. I think you did it wrong. And they trade the same way. Like, we've traded enough together that I know how they trade, and sure enough, they were right and I was wrong, and I should have listened, But I had a lot of ego on that one too, because it did exactly what I said it was going to do. It dumped on earnings, but then it got soaked up, which I did not account for, and he did, and so he made money and I lost money, and that's the way it goes sometimes.
That is the way it goes sometimes. And you're right. I'm not saying that it's always wrong for me to get out of a position, but like, I don't know. It's probably a confidence thing, which I equate to being a girl thing too. So,
Oh my God.
We're all dealing with our own things.
That took forever.
Hey, I'm outnumbered here. Careful.
No, the girl thing is real. She's not like.
No, I 100% agree.
I mean, you're not
being a girl in an all male industry, and like as a male who trades options, it's very ego driven. Like, when I took puts on SPY and my buddy took calls, like, if I'm wrong, like, they'll message me and be like, yo, nice play, dude. It's just an ego thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's hard to, like, find your footing sometimes because you don't always know who to trust as a woman. I think maybe the guys have a better sense of doing this otherwise, but, like, as a woman, you don't always know who to trust. And, I mean, just generally, women tend to be in a different financial position than men. For good or worse, for better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to earn less over the course of our careers. We tend to burden more, so a lot of times guys can really do options trading throughout the day in a way that women can't. Just because traditional, like, burden sharing, women tend to take care of the kids, right? You tend to have the jobs women tend to be in, although it's slowly changing, are less technology and screen available and more like hands-on. And so sometimes when you enter the space as a woman, it can be and the worst is if you make a bad trade and you're public about it. Then it's like, oh, women are too emotional to trade. And I'm like, I just watched you yell at the TV, like, over a sports game. Like, really?
Yeah.
And so it can be very demoralizing. Like, I made a huge bad trade, a bad call on ConocoPhillips, and some of the guys followed me into it, and it was a really bad call. But it was based off of knowledge that I had talked with some like professional investment bankers, and everyone, oil's going to hit $100 a barrel before December 1st. And so I made the trade, and then I felt bad for weeks after, like, it started tanking. I was like, oh my.
Yeah. I have made calls in Discords before that were bad calls and left the Discord. Because no one was like, you have to leave, but I was just like, oh my God. Like, that's my biggest fear, is losing other people money. And then it just is it is hard being a woman trader. And I feel super self-conscious of even saying or asking for help. Like,
yes,
I'm in Discords where people ask for help all the time. And then if I say something like, is this a bear flag? And it's not, then I'm just like, oh, I'm so stupid. Like, I shouldn't have even said that. It's hard.
Yeah.
You're just constantly trying to prove yourself.
And I think Twitter has made it a little bit worse, because a lot of the female traders on Twitter are, I call them Insta thoughts, because on, like,
Yep,
okay. Because on Instagram, they're, like, body driven, which, cheers. Congratulations. I'm glad you have it. I'm glad you are happy flaunt.
You guys are moms. Totally different. You're them. Like, 10 years ago, you guys probably look great just like them, all right?
I think I look great now. I just don't.
Oh, hey, get after it. Let's go.
I just want to be respected for, if you want to trade with me or learn from me, I want it to be because of my mind, not because you can bounce your laptop off my ass. Whoops, sorry.
Right.
Pardon the language.
Right.
Oh my God.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Too. And so it can be, being a woman trader can be really difficult, because, like, you make a bad call and you feel bad, and then you're like, oh crap. And then your emotions go down. Whereas I think guys are generally raised. I'm trying really hard with my kids to even the playing field a little bit. But, it's a generational thing too. I think guys are really raised to take up space. And when they make a mistake, to just kind of plow forward, and women are not raised in the same manner.
We just delete our tweets. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's what.
You could do the same thing. Come on. If we make a bad call, just delete the tweet. Be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said that.
Oh my God. Didn't Zach Morris do that recently?
I'm not sure.
I'm like, that guy is someone I would.
I want to ask your opinion. Do you know who Anya Trades is on Twitter?
I've seen the account. I don't know who it is.
You know it's run by a guy, right? Yeah.
It has to be run by a guy.
Wait, you didn't, dude? That was like, I remember when I like way back in the day when I first started trading, be like, yo, Anya Trades, like it's a guy. I'm like, what do you mean it's a guy? It's like, oh, it's a guy that runs the account and just posts pictures of his former adult film star girlfriend. It's so funny. Watch the YouTube videos of her, and you can see her reading a teleprompter of, like, talking about trading.
It's trading.
It's marketing 101.
Yeah, it really is. A boob sell like that.
Yeah.
Who was I joking with about, like, we would run a paid, like, a Snapchat where we trade in lingerie, and, like, then.
It's an OnlyFans, but stop.
Right? But then you don't actually have to trade. You just have to pretend you're trading. Because they're paying for the trading advice. They're paying to watch you.
Yeah, but as a woman, do you think that, like, that almost, like, how do I explain it?
Devalues?
Yeah, it devalues you and your abilities, right?
So, I'm of two minds about this. The first is that what anyone does with their body is their decision alone. And if that's how you want to make a living, more power to you. The second is, holy cow, girl, put on some clothes so people see your mind first and not your body. And those two are hard for me to balance, right? Like, I went to law school.
Okay. You speak a lot. You sound like my mom. I hate to say it.
Oh, that's okay.
She went to law school too. She's very much like that. But I'm curious, like, if you were, say, a 20-year-old girl, and then if you didn't have kids, would it be different? Like, if I was a 20-year-old girl, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'll sit there in lingerie all day. But I feel like once you have kids and responsibilities and, you've worked your ass off being a woman, I think your mindset kind of changes.
It might. I think it also takes a particular kind of person to be willing to do that. And that is not me.
Okay.
I don't want everyone to see my body.
I just want to trade stocks and raise my kids. Leave me alone.
I just want to, I have my picture up on my Twitter profile and I have my picture up on my Discord profile. And, my Twitter profile is pretty tame. It's me doing the splits in front of a glacier in Alaska in a sweatshirt and jeans and boots. Like big old fluffy hiking boots, okay? I am fully covered from neck to toe. My hair is a little wild because it was windy that day.
It's also Alaska, They don't care about hair up there.
But it's a pretty tame picture, and I have gotten a range of comments.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Weirdos?
Yeah, some weirdo. Yes, weirdos all around. But from the positives to the negatives, and it's gross.
I hate that about social media. As someone who has a girl profile picture, so people are nicer to me on the internet, I've gotten weird DMs.
There's no way they're nicer with a girl picture.
Yeah, I actually, it's right. I used to forget what my old profile picture was, but then I changed it to a female because people will troll you. But if you have a girl profile picture, they were actually nicer to me. Like, oh, it's okay, you made a bad call, and this is when I first started, so I kept it. But I've also gotten DMs like, hey, want to send me X-rated pictures? I'm like, I'm a dude, and they don't answer me. So
I had someone ask for my socks that I wore while I was trading, and
what?
They wanted to pay for. So you're torn between. Yeah, that's the easiest $200 you'll ever make, right? And it's ew, you weirdo. But I mean, that's not who I am as a general person.
Okay.
And whether or not I would be I'm trying to think what I would do if my daughter came to me and said.
Yeah, that was my next question. If your daughter wanted to do that, how would you handle it?
I would not watch.
Well, I mean, as a guy, and if I thought I did that, I'd probably change my name, move to a different state, start a new family.
And that's, I think part of it is my perception of what guys would perceive her as and how society would put that on her instead of it being about her. Right? If a woman does that and society wasn't quite so structured to view women as objects, it would be fine. Because a guy could sit in his boxers and trade all day long and no one would have a problem with it. A girl
That's what I do.
Yeah, a girl does it, and it becomes this sexualized fantasy thing.
Yeah.
When I was first starting the podcast, I really regret even having this thought, and I've never admitted it on the show, but I think we're there. When I first started it, I wasn't getting a ton of traction with listeners. It just it took a little while. And looking back, it took a little while because I was brand new to FinTwit. Nobody knew me. Podcasts are hard to build a following. What I needed was time. And I remember asking my friend if they thought that I should try to get a hotter profile picture so people would listen to the podcast. And then I don't really remember what my friend said. And on my own, I was just no. The podcast is just about me being me, and this is who I am, and this is what I look like, and but it was a weird thing to kind of work through of do I kind of want to make that deal with the devil to get something that I want? If it's weird. Never ever share your passwords to your crypto wallets. You already know this. But what happens if something were to happen to you? An emergency or worse? How can you securely share this information, as well as other critically important info, safely with the people you trust the most when you're unable to personally share it? The answer is Help You Find Me. It's an end-to-end encrypted data sharing service specifically designed to only share data in emergency situations. You share your information with the people you trust the most and set rules on how and when they can access this information. Since it's end-to-end encrypted, nobody, not even Help You Find Me, can access this information except you and the people you specifically share it with. In an emergency, your loved ones will be under enough stress. Don't add to their burden by making it difficult for them to help you by not having access to critical information. Try Help You Find Me for free by going to helpyoufindme.com/PL Blaine.
That's interesting. Yeah. Imagine if you did take that route, how different things would be. I think for me personally,
the podcast would be so different in not a good way.
No, and I was going to say, because it just wouldn't be authentic. And I think that's the power that you have, is that you're very authentic and you're real with people. And I think in a modern society, people just aren't real anymore. It's all like kind of fake.
Yeah, which is it's a problem, and it's, you're starting to see it a little more, I think, in FinTwit and Reddit too. Because like the bots are all over Reddit, right? People are like, oh, but Reddit has this great DD. I'm like, that's a bot. Like, no one's like, I no longer count Reddit in as anything, just because it's just, no one's real. You don't know. I'm not real. You're not real. But
I'm actually a robot. I was designed in a
you have to
lab
be careful,
somewhere.
like where your advice is coming from, and I think that might be part of the draw that people have to watching someone trade in lingerie, would be like, it's a real person, but also, it's such a weird concept to me to like sexualize trading.
Yeah. It's really not that sexy when you just sit and just be stressed out all day sometimes.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
When pennies were running last year, and I'm at my computer and I'm making, these huge block trades of hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars at once. And then I'm watching and watching and watching. Is it tapping the 8? Is it tapping the 21? Is it bouncing up? Like, do I need to cut? Do I need to keep going? Like, do I cut here at 20%? Do I hold for the next? And everyone has their own set of rules for what they do when they're in trades, right? Like, I think Atlas has a 90-180 or some 90-120.
Yeah, 90-120.
90-120 rule. And, my current rule with trading is, unless you have a really strong plan, you don't hold overnight. And if you're up at 20%, you start scaling. Like, I will scale far earlier in this market than I would before. It's just, it's not worth it to lose your gains on the whim of, with all this stuff going on in the world, right? Inflation, jobs, COVID, Ukraine, right? Like, one wrong piece of news drops and your portfolio is done.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have some legacy stocks. I have like some generational wealth. My grandfather used to buy us stocks for like birthdays and stuff. And I always thought it was horrible at the time. And now I'm like, heck yeah, this is awesome.
What stocks are they? You got some Philip Morris. You got a little bit of Coca-Cola. What do you have?
I do have some Coca-Cola.
Oh, classic. My grandfather gave me Coca-Cola stock.
Yeah. I have like, your traditional. I have Lockheed Martin. I have IBM. Nice. I have 3M. I have Johnson & Johnson. I have Tesla from IPO. You have Apple. My dad worked for Apple as a software engineer way back in the beginning, where they paid them like barely living wages, but loaded them with stock options because they were like, $4 and useless. And so I have those. I do some contract work for companies, so I have some shares from that stuff. But I have some long-term generational stuff that you just kind of look at and you're like that would be okay if it tanked. If the market tanks, that portfolio is okay. Oh, like Disney, yeah. I got it 80 when it like COVID hit and Disney hit 80. I was like, bring me.
Like, I need to Mickey Mouse now.
Well, like Disney's a robust company, right?
They own literally everything media related.
You buy 100 shares at 80, which I will admit for most people is a large chunk of money. But you sell those calls on them to like you sell the 170s and the 180s, the things that are so far out of range, but that you'd be okay with like at the stock losing. And you've made up that $8,000 because the premiums are coming in. But, you know, those are the kinds of things that, you know, look back at what happened with COVID. What happens if the market crashes again? And the answer is it's going to be far worse this time because people are so over leveraged. Like the hedge funds.
Oh yeah, all the small family offices, they're so like, I mean, look at Snapchat, prime example. You know, some fund just got blown up from that, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we mentioned Kathy Woods earlier.
That's my girl, bro. That's my dream woman right there. I'd ride in a Tesla with her, you know what I'm saying?
You and like half the male investors in the world.
Oh, whoa. Careful.
Like, look at her portfolio. She has like Zoom from the 300s. Like, she's finally all out of Netflix. But the hit like that she had to take for that, I mean...
Yeah. They don't even post the year-to-date returns on ARK website anymore.
Yeah, you have to like search.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're only down 30% since October of 2021. I'm like, oh, but what about now?
Yeah, what about before that too? Because so you're looking at, but like those are leveraged. Like she's not running an all cash operation, and so when you look at those and you think to yourself, okay, let's say Putin is Putin and he decides to be crazy and invade Ukraine tomorrow, right? What happens to everything? Where are your defensive stocks? It's DFEN is the ETF, right? For the defense stocks. But it's like Lockheed Martin, it's Boeing, it's Kratos, it's Leidos, it's, you know, Raytheon. It's not Netflix, Zoom.
DraftKings? Yeah.
But so it's not those. And so in this, I still like the phrase trampoline market. In this market situation, like, do you really, really want to be over leveraged into those things? Like, you have to be way more risk tolerant than I am to like be in those stocks for a long time.
No, I agree. And you seem pretty well read. Maybe your mom's giving you some tips, but that's what I see too. Is that's why it's so kangaroo-y right now, is because everyone's over leveraged to like the max. And the only way this ends is if they just gonna get blown up one by one as we go down.
Well, and the problem is, right, that it won't be one by one. It's gonna be all. Like, there's a point at...
Are you thinking just a massive cave-in to the black hole and just everyone just gets sucked through the wormhole and everyone's done?
I really do. Like, it's like the thought of like the margin calls that would have to be made is like a little scary to me, because that's a lot of money. Like, that's a lot of sell-off all at once. Like, when I trade Snap, for instance, I traded it for earnings. It was an earnings lotto, but I didn't get weeklies, right? Like, I bought myself 3 weeks of time. And I can do that because I have a bigger account. And so, but I will always buy time. Does it mean that I won't make as big of a percentage as someone that bought the same weekly at the same time? Sure. But, you know, I like to give myself a little bit of time, but I will still sell it overnight. Like, those are the things you do, right? To kind of mitigate your risk when you're trading options. You buy yourself time even if you don't intend to hold it.
Do you buy leaps as well? Because you talked about covered calls, so I was curious if you also
I will
use leaps.
buy leaps only if I intend to convert them.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's similar to what I do too, except I normally buy the shares and then add like a leap on top of it. So like every 100 shares, I'll buy like 5 leaps just to kind of, you know, grow those returns.
Yeah.
Can't really do it right now, but you bet you when the market bottoms, I'm going to bottom ticket and we're going to buy Lambos. You're welcome to come. We can hang out, drive Lambos around. Your son can come play Minecraft on the Tesla iPad and screen. I
am not buying a Lambo. If I can think of like things that are irresponsible to do with your cash, let's buy a European racing car for an American highway system. Cheers.
Yeah, that sounds like Do you have a Twitter? I mean, like, what? Like, you don't
I do have a Twitter, and someone once asked me if I've ever made any money in the market. And I was like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, but you don't post pictures of your gains. I'm like, could you possibly think of a more irresponsible thing to do? Like,
you're so disciplined. I really like you. I feel like a lot of people are gonna, like. It goes to show you. How long have you been trading for? You have to have been doing this a while to have this amount of discipline, or just knowledge in general.
It's been years and years.
Okay, yeah, because like the young YOLOs don't have this kind of knowledge or understanding.
I YOLO. Like, let's be honest. I'll YOLO here and there too. Like.
But you're not betting 90% of your account on Snapchat earnings.
No, you bet. I will never ever. I guess I broke this rule with Google shares. On a small account, but so I don't throw more than like 10% at any given trade. Almost, it will be very rare. Like incredibly rare.
Is that for just options or shares in general?
Either. I just don't do it. I don't want all my eggs in a basket. It is one of my personal risk mitigation strategies is that, because then let's say you're playing options and you're like, I've got a feeling, right? Woohoo. But so you go with your feeling and you YOLO or even put 40% of your account into this. What happens when that goes to zero? Like, I can lose.
They never go. Lottos never go to zero.
Oh yes, I've heard stocks only go up. Says somebody I know who has
who hasn't traded in 2022
or has NNDM and is $8 average and it's sitting at like 3 and change right now. I'm like, yeah, stocks only go up, huh?
That's Kathy Wood stock too, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Oh man,
it's once again in the growth beatdown sector.
I have a question though. If a young woman's listening to this who wants to get into finance and the investing world, what are tips that both of you would give to her? Say she's 22, 23 years old. She wants to build a portfolio so she can buy a house one day with her husband or whatever.
By herself if she so chooses.
By herself? Hell yeah. I mean, that's what I'm trying to convince my girlfriend to do. Get her own 2 separate houses right next to each other. She's not really about it, but I tried.
I would say if you're just starting, your risk tolerance should be close to zero. So you want to put your money into stocks that have a dividend. And the reason I say that is for 2 reasons. A dividend will help you stomach as the stock swings up and down. Because stocks do swing up and down. All of them do. You don't want to buy something at a 52-week high. Like it hit an all-time high. Let me jump in right now. That's a bad idea. But like you do want to buy a dividend stock. They are generally stronger companies that will weather this kind of chop much better than your BBIG, your AMC.
Okay, so BBIG is not a long-term investment?
BBIG is not a long-term investment. Well, I mean, I guess it is if you followed Zach Morris. You're going to be holding that.
Got him!
You're going to be holding Wish has now become your long-term. So, yeah, you want to make some really smart choices in the beginning to learn the market. You stay away from options. You settle into shares, right? You learn what an earnings report is. I think a lot of traders jump into options too quick because they think it's quick cash and then they make some money and then they think, oh, I'm good. And they stop learning. And then they lose the money and then they're like, crap, what happened?
Now, would you recommend maybe like depositing money like once a month? Just like, $100, $200, say they just started out of college or building up like their IRA.
Go like $1 a day. Like,
interesting. Okay.
You gotta invest what you can afford, and when you're young, it should be investing. Like unless it's money you can afford to lose, it should be investing. So most 20-year-olds don't have $1,000 that they can just afford to lose.
Okay.
If you do, cheers, trade it. But if you don't, like, take $1 a day. It's great. Webull and Robinhood, although I prefer Webull to Robinhood, both of them allow you to buy fractional shares. So you can take $1 a day and put it, buy $1 of Chevron. It's my favorite energy oil play right now. But you buy put $1 in Chevron one day, $1 in Amazon the next, $1 in Google the next. Then find another good dividend stock.
Now, based on that, so would you say if you were to go back to your 20s, would you invest more if you had the cash to do so?
Yes.
Do you really think it sets people up for the rest of their lives? Because I love having this conversation because people, I tell people, hey, wire out some money you just made off that lotto instead of trying to flip it again.
Yeah, set it aside. Yeah, so it bomb-proofs you is essentially what it does, right? If you put your money into shares, it will bomb-proof you. Shares of good companies. I'm not right, throw away Wish, don't look at Tattooed Chef. But you want to look at good, solid the Dow Jones. If it's in the Dow Jones, it's a good, solid company, right? If it's on the indexes, not the Russell and not IWM, but the other ones.
IWM is not really an index.
Well,
it's a bear market.
Oh, God, right? But so you got to find the big names. Like, what do you think of when you think of suburban shopping? You think of Target, right? So put some money in Target. These are companies that aren't going to go under. Or if they do, there's a really big, broader problem.
Okay.
So someone was like, oh, who was it? I can't remember. Somebody was like, I think maybe I'll invest in Playboy instead of McDonald's. And I was like, what the? Like, when you sit and you look at those two companies, let me put money in Playboy or let me put money in McDonald's. Like, you put the money in McDonald's. People are going to eat. McDonald's is a huge worldwide franchise. Like, if it goes under, there's something way bigger going on. And you're going to have way more concerns than, did my stock portfolio tank? So
if they go under, you might be able to buy a bomb shelter to hide from the apocalypse with the zombies.
Right? Like, some people do a really good job at finding the next Apple. And I really think that that Palantir might really be a really good... So I love the company. Like, PLTR. Love the company. Hate the press.
It's so overvalued, in my opinion.
Well, so it may be...
Because of the press.
Yes, because of the press. But it's at, Palantir $8 is a steal. I think it's at, 12 right now. But it's a really good company. It's ChargePoint is sitting at $12.70 right now. And that is going to be one of the companies that really funnels an EV charging revolution is going to be ChargePoint. And because their chargers are so easily accessible to use, just plug and play in your home. And so you have to find, if you have money to lose, you can play with these companies that are the next big thing. But if you don't have money to lose and you're just starting out, you put it in things that'll bomb-proof you. Right? You don't buy the flashy car, you buy the reliable Honda Civic. So it's just, is it going to grow? It's not flashy, it's not sexy, but it is long-term setting up for wealth type of stuff. So that's my personal opinion on that one. But also know that I lost a bet while I was young and I had to buy Bitcoin. I had to spend $100 and buy Bitcoin. And at that time you could buy 20 actual Bitcoins for $100. And so, I did that and that paid off big time this year when I realized that I still had the wallet. And so
whoa,
casual 1 mil, it's all right.
So, but that was a stupid $100 bet, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that with money that you're looking at for long term.
Interesting. Okay, I think that's good. That's definitely my philosophy too. Is that's how I built up my portfolios. The Microsofts, the Apples, just kind of slowly adding into it.
Yeah. Well, it's I bought. I hate buying Google. I bought Google right before earnings because I was like, well, they need to split this year because I know they want to get onto the DJI and they're too heavy. They haven't moved. That stock doesn't move because it's so expensive. So I was like, it'll split this year at some point in time. So I bought it on the dip before earnings, to like have and hold.
Yeah.
But like,
I bought some too because I think that they have a special dividend too, which I think is pretty neat as well.
Well, that's one of the reasons I really like Chevron. It's at 130 something right now, but you know, I've been buying it up along the way. I stopped buying once it passed 116. But if it comes down under 120, I'll get some more. It has a special dividend and it has a regular dividend. Like,
it pays you to own it.
And it's stupid because people are like, well, it's 10 cents. And I'm like, well, okay, but the special dividend was like $1. And they're like,
yeah, exactly.
They're like, well, so in a year you make $4 off of $100? And I was like, well, yes, and that's 4%, and that's quite enough, thank you. Because then you take that and you turn it around and you put it back in.
It's not sexy.
No.
You know? You ever heard the term money talks, wealth whispers?
Yes.
Yeah, I like to say that to people a lot because I feel like FinTwit is a lot of money talk. It's not, you don't see the wealthy people on there. Like the wealthiest traders I know live in like a casual house, but they're trading, 10,000 contracts at a time on a scalp.
Well, like if you met my mom and her friends, you would never know. They all live in like condos.
Yeah.
And they wear like Costco jeans and t-shirts. I mean,
I had like this exact conversation with the Wolf of Weed Street, or I've been having it with him for months, but he has just the best system of he pays himself twice a week. Mm-hmm. He puts 50% into what he calls blue chip companies. 25% is to increase his buying power, and 25% is for taxes and like whatever he wants to live on.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's the way. That's how you do it.
It takes an insane amount of discipline to do that. Like I do it weekly with gains, but it takes an insane amount because you see that money and you're like, if I could just use it and it would go better.
Yeah.
Right? But then you're like, okay, or I could just bomb-proof myself.
Yep.
It takes, some of this is just personality types too. I'm not a flashy person. I had someone on Twitter be like, are you a millionaire? And I'm like, what difference does it make? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, if you see me out and about, I'm going to be in like leggings and a t-shirt and a sweatshirt with my hair thrown up on my head. Like, you'll never know. And you should never know.
Yeah, it's not important.
No.
That's what I always tell people. Like, people always like, especially my generation in the 20s, like, oh, how much money do you make, doing this? I'm like, I got my own place. I got food. That's all I really need.
Yeah. Talking about money from stocks is also rather dependent. So let's say you and I are trading the same stock and I say, oh, I made $200. And you're like, oh, crap, I only made 50. Well, but the question is, what percentage of your win was that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so
I trade with some buddies who trade with massive size. I'm like, I made 500 on the scalp. And they're like, oh, yeah, I just cleared like 15K. And I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's why pennies are sometimes more profitable for some people than others. Because I can trade, if I can make 8 trades at 1%, that's 8%. But if you're under a PDT rule or you don't have that kind of, capital, you can't do the same type of trading. So, yeah. Percent's not hard cash.
All right, guys. Well, we have reached the end of our time on this podcast. No,
you're great. Yeah.
Loved the episode. I loved it. You're amazing.
You're kind of a badass. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Also, just for anyone who heard you say about posting your P&Ls on Twitter and was like, "Woo," because I do that, but they're like $200 a day, and I do it just to keep track of, let all the listeners know how slowly this journey's going. But I did want to address that.
Yeah, I do it occasionally on my Twitter, like generally when I've like actually called an entry and exit and I played it exactly how I called it. I'll post mine, but like a lot of times you see a trade and you do the research on the trade, and then for whatever reason you don't pull your trigger, right? Or you do pull your trigger, but it, you didn't play it the way you called it. So I try to be, a little open and honest, but also like I don't really want to share. Like, it's my money.
Yeah. Well, it's a personality choice too. And I really do it for the podcast because I feel like I have, basically all of FinTwit hoping that I don't fail at this. So
hey, I hope you succeed. Everyone can succeed. Like, somebody told me that there's only so much money in the world. And I was like, well, okay, then let's have it all go to retail. like, like, cheers. We can cheer each other on. Like, I will absolutely make fun of you if you follow a Zach Morris play, but it doesn't mean I'm also not wishing you the best.
Totally. Alice, any closing words?
No, I feel like I just talked to my mom about trading. And you said you were a mom, so my mom works in a similar field as you, so it's very interesting to see. I'm sure that your kids probably have the same critical thinking skills that I do, just from the fields our parents both work in. So
probably.
Yeah, nothing's fun anymore when your parents are lawyers. So
it does, however.
Because it's not that there's a Lego on the ground, right? It's like, oh, if someone steps on it, there's going to be a lawsuit, you'll lose your homeowner's insurance. It's like this whole rabbit hole. But it actually does help in trading because you always think about what's the worst case scenario ever. So it makes you very risk adverse. But no, it was really great talking to you. I'm happy that we got a woman on here. And a badass woman at that. Shout out to all my women out there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Guys, we are getting very close to March 11th, which is the last day you can use the code PENNY for 10% off your order from Last Bottle Wine. We love the company. The wine's amazing. The prices are fantastic. If you like wine at all, I really encourage you to use this coupon code. Thanks. Thank you so much to our producer Joel Edwards and Chesley Lowe for the banjo music.
By accessing this podcast, you acknowledge that the Penny Lane podcast makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional or financial advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, the Penny Lane podcast does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. The third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of the Penny Lane podcast. The Penny Lane podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with applicable laws of such materials and/or links referenced herein.